In the last few weeks, people in many places around the globe have been in heightened awareness of the fragility of life, of the anxious uncertainty of what could happen through life-threatening conditions, through human aggression and violence, through the traumas of so-called natural disasters. For me, it was enormously satisfying to read in this week's Time magazine what our own Prime Minister had to say. Instead of various church people doing their usual predictable speeches about Christmas and all that has been associated with it, there was our Prime Minister saying something of enormous and celebrative importance. He said, "We have seen in the worst of times the best in people." One of the greatest challenges for the world's people, yes, possibly the greatest challenge, is how to decrease the occurrences of the worst of times and how to increase the best of times. Surely good-thinking, good-feeling people would want that to happen. Prevention and growth, prevention and education, prevention and increasing conversations among people of difference, prevention and increased inner strength and resilience to cope with what has to be coped with. Many people worldwide are today blaming religion for the terrible things that happen, and sometimes that is right. But is it really religion, or is it a failure of education, a failure of growth, a failure of maturity in our humanity? Far back in the past, indeed the God of the Bible religion was at many times and many places depicted as an angry God, as an aggressive God, as a jealous God, as a God of violence and murder and mass destruction. And human beings copied him, even prayed that that God of violence would bless their violence. And so it happened. Natural disasters and all the rest. God was behind it. The flood in Noah's time, that mythic story, where a whole population was drowned like cats and dogs, to the more specific threat of Abraham, ready to kill his son Isaac because his God had told him to do it. From the shocking massacre of those children in Egypt at the time of the Exodus, to the specific event of the death of Jesus of Nazareth by the most appalling torture of crucifixion. So if we would write a play, imagine, would you, writing a play about God and his relationship to human beings. The human being, I'm going to call HB, because we like to use those sort of names, JFK, FDR. So today, all of us are going to be HB, human beings. And in the play, I'd like you to put HB, will put the question, was all this bloodshed so necessary? Surely all those killings were not necessary to prove your totalitarian supremacy. Why did you get so mixed up with what was good and what was evil? And HB would go on to argue the case further. He would say, in one place in Genesis, you said, you made man in your own image. So the image of God in man is what we've been talking about for centuries. Did that mean that we human beings would follow your example and kill and crucify, murder and maim, beat and burn? Where is the end of all this, lest we extinguish the whole lot and nothing is left? So in the play, God might say, you, HB, became so obsessed with your power to kill. You spent so much time and money and skill on how to kill each other that you didn't spend any time or sufficient time on the intricacies of how you might live, how to live with each other, how to live enjoyably and fully, how to enhance the gifts that you've been given, your humanity, your intelligence, your togetherness. So God goes on to tell HB, so put away all your powerful weapons of injury and destruction, all your symbols that you celebrate, your wars and honor your heroes. God says there's one day every year, you can celebrate life. And you can take out its powerful symbols, the alternatives to your violence and destruction. The alternatives, HB says, what are the alternatives? Well, said God, do remember. Do remember in your Old Testament, the book of Deuteronomy, I gave you the promise, several promises. Today I set before you good and evil, life and death. You can choose. But God says, I suggest you choose life. Choose living life, living it with goodness and generosity and gratitude and grace. And that will be for you life, long life, enjoyable into your old age. So in my play, God says to HB, go now into your garage, go into your old shed, pull out your forgotten flags that once celebrated the alternatives to your symbols of violence and hate. God says, tame your God and you will be tamed. Worship the violent God and you will be damaged and destroyed. Choose. And God says, I am waiting to be tamed. I am wanting to be tamed. I want to see all the aggression in creation evolve into what is beautiful, into a beautiful, effective alternative. Call it the evolution of God. Call it the evolution of human beings. Call it the evolution of everything until potential and perfection are fulfilled. So what are the alternative symbols to your violence and aggression? Study them. Study them in the same way that you've studied the ways of war. Practice them with the same passion that you've pursued and practiced your aggression that has also been planted within your personality. There are two immensely powerful symbols waiting for you to study and seriously put into effect, waiting for you to translate into positive, constructive practice that will change the world. Two. Altruism and compassion. Altruism, bringing out the best to help and serve others. Compassion, bringing out the best to help and serve others. You've got a choice one day of the year to be different. Altruism and compassion. And together bringing out the best even in the worst of times. And the God of great possibilities and great promises will open the doorways for you to rejoice and sing. So this is Christmas Day, a highly important day, because this is one day of the year when we can bring out the best in ourselves and in others. And indeed, it has all the potential of discovering the best in the world, bringing out the very best in the world. This is the day. This is the time. There's a time for everything under heaven, but this is the time. Several times in the past, I have spoken to you about the 7 prongs. Oh yes, 7. 7 prongs of the human personality. I'm going to speak to you about them again today. Some might say, what about the birth in the manger? Well, I'm going to say you've heard that before. And you'll hear it again and again. But the 7 prongs of the personality are what follows, or what could follow on this important day. Today I'll speak about the birth and growth of the human spirit. Because that's what the Christmas choice is about. You've heard it all before, you'll say. But like the birth and the manger story, this human personality story, the 7 prongs, this story needs repeating. At the center of the Christian birth story is the gift to the human being, a gift. And we're asked to receive it, to let it grow, and to find and give it our best. So the 7 prongs of the human personality are a transforming gift. Now some of you will say 7, that's too many. We can't remember 7. Oh yes, you can. Of course, you know that the ideal sermon is supposed to only have 3 points. I gave that away long ago because I always believe we can cope with more than 3. But then I'm greatly supported this last week because my namesake, Francis the Pope, in his address to the bishops and cardinals the other day, took 15 points. 15 points. Now, if you haven't read them, I hope you'll get them and read them, because they could be for anybody. But he said these are especially for the bishops and the cardinals. I doubt whether any bishop or cardinal slept through that sermon. 15 points. Now, I'm going to pick out just 3 for a start, just in passing. He said to his bishops and cardinals, you are becoming spiritually and mentally hardened. Change. You are committed to the terrorism of gossip. Time to change. You are forming closed circles that seek to be stronger than the whole. Time to change. He urged the Vatican administrators to be more joyful, and he reminded them of how much good a dose of humour can do. So I'll leave you to look again, if you're able, at the 15 points that Francis the Pope spoke. But here are 7 points, 5 of which I've taken from fellow psychologists in America and 2 of my own. And they spell out the word, remember, some of you remember, they spell out the word oceanic. Because, you see, is there anything better than having an oceanic personality? O means openness, open-mindedness, open-heartedness. C means coming together to celebrate, what does this book say on its cover? To celebrate compassion. C. I'll come back to that. E means empathy, evolving in your understanding. A means to be affable, to be alive, to be altruistic. N means just be nice. That would be good. I means to be inspirational. Internalize the real goodness of God and inspire others with it. Inspire. And C comes back to another C. I used it previously to emphasize the importance of finding ways to collaborate in a good cause. But the other day I found a different C. And maybe it's better. It's the C of casserole. Be part of a casserole. Now, I found I didn't know how to spell that word. I'd never written it in all my life before. So I had to check it. Yes, I now can spell it. So a good casserole is full of nutrients all together. Joy. Of course, some people will take my 7 oceanics and give the alternatives. No, we have alternatives. So O becomes offensive and out of step. C becomes cantankerousness and conflicted. E becomes egocentric. A becomes aggressive and angry. N becomes noxious and negative. I becomes insensitive and without insight. C becomes contagiously critical. Which do you want? So you have a choice. Of course, I could have taken another C. Another C I discovered. C stands for the Caspian Sea. A huge stretch of water the size of California. Sea. Locked in with no outlets to the sea by some 5 countries. There it is. It is the largest body of inland water in the world, fed by 4 rivers, carrying both freshwater fish and saltwater fish. And amazingly, it lies 28 meters below sea level. So like any human being, it has all those complexities and being locked in, completely surrounded, and yet it continues to be a piece of an amazing creation. And so can you. So I ask, what aspect of God do you take into yourself? Do you internalize the angry God? Or do you internalize the God of openness, celebrating compassion, empathic and expansive, embracing, affable, altruistic, alive? Do you embrace the God nicely, the nice God, inspirational, pleased to be included in the casserole of good things? What kind of God will you revere in your life? What kind of God will you respond to? How will you treat each other if you've got the wrong God inside? I listened carefully to one of my grandkids. He was having a little difficulty with one of his girlfriends. And in the circularity of the comings and goings of that relationship, which was, I think, ending, he got into the car one evening for me to drive him home, and I said to him, "Well, how was she?" And he said, "She is a God." Now, I think that will probably be the only time she'll ever hear those words applied to her in all her lifetime. She should have cherished it. She is a God, he said. What kind of God? So you see, in giving you my gift today of the 7 prongs of a good, expansive personality that ought to flow on from any Christmas story, the gift would be incomplete without a ribbon wrapped around it. a gold ribbon, like the tree. A gold ribbon. And I'd like to inscribe on the ribbon, this is a gift. My 7 prongs. This is a gift, wrapping around it. This is a gift. It contains glimpses of God. Ah, yes, you see, somehow the letter G has got in here, so I'll keep it there for a moment. Glimpses of God to be internalized in your psyche, in your heart, in your mind. On the ribbon of gold, I would inscribe 7 G's. Goodness, growth, gratitude, gentleness, generosity, grace, a good God. And would you believe it? Would you imagine that this ribbon is not made of cloth. Imagine that it's completely edible. And as you start to eat it, it dissolves in your mouth. And all those G words become internalized within you. Internalize all those good things that go with that positive letter G. And the angry God is tamed. And as we ingest it, as we internalize it, we are changed. So I wish you all a very good Christmas. Would you please stand? Oh, come all ye faithful. We'll sing the hymn. But before we do this blessing, the blessing, may the God you see in all the colours of creation arouse in you a sense of awe and wonder. May the God who is a sacred presence be real to you. May the God who is a source of inspiration and courage keep calling you forwards. May your God go with you and bless you today and always.